Hey Liz, you there? Okay, hopefully we're recording. Again, for those that are watching this on recording, we were just creating a new Universal Windows app, blank. I went ahead and set it to 13-inch desktop and zoomed in to 100 so I can actually see my workspace. Can everybody on Zoom actually see the screen well enough, the text? If not, I'm not sure how I'm going to change that. Well, we'll just get started, and if it's a problem, we'll try to figure it out later.
Yeah,
First thing, go ahead.
It's a little small, but it's readable to me at least.
Okay. I wish I could zoom the whole screen. Like I probably can. I'd have to reduce the resolution on that particular screen in order to get that to work. But we'll go ahead and try this. Very first thing I want to do is go ahead and create our device, because that's the first. And in terms of breaking everything into composite pieces, we need to create a device. We need to create a measure length device, and we need to create the main page. The device is actually a virtual device. It's simulating something that is creating some data. What we're creating in this project is actually a data collector that collects data from some physical device. I don't have the physical device to collect from, so I'm creating a virtual device to create artificial data that we're going to capture. So the very first thing I want to do is go ahead and go over and create a new class. And just call it device. And again, to save time, to have everybody get through this a lot faster, because I don't want to be here for like 3 or 4 hours. Matter of fact, I know some of you are at work. I'm going to go ahead and put code in the chat window, and you can copy and paste that code into the window you see on the screen, or on your project, I'm sorry. So the first thing I want to do inside of the device is I actually want to create a timer. So some of it that's pretty simple, I'm just going to type it out. So let's go ahead and create a constructor. The constructor is going to create a simple timer. I'll explain why this is important in 1 second.
Professor, could you hold your control key down in your mouse wheel to enlarge the screen text a bit in your code area?
Hang on. Let me finish typing this out real quick. Oh, sorry. I created a timer at the top. By the way, I apologize. Whoever talked while I'm concentrating typing, I lost my stream of consciousness. I'm trying typing. If you can actually type your questions in chat, that way it's a little more asynchronous, so I can type and then I can look at the question, and then we're not having to duplicate anything unless it's a really long question. Okay, let me go ahead and copy this in. That's the timer. I went ahead and put the text in. Is everybody able to see that in the chat?
Nope.
None. I think somebody tried to chat with me privately. I apologize. There we go. Okay, there we go. Nope, still private. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I'm new to Zoom. This is only my second time using it. So, but anyways, what was your question? I'm not hearing anybody.
You're muted there, Paul.
If you, yeah, I was muted. If you can use the mouse wheel and your control key to enlarge the text in the screen, it would help.
Yeah.
If you just put your cursor in the, yeah, you can do that too. There we go. Now I can see it. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Okay, now what I've done is just created a timer, and the first time instance is actually the number of milliseconds to wait, or seconds in this case, to wait before firing the timer the first time. And the second time is actually how often to repeat the timer. This is actually the method that is going to be called, in this case, as soon as the second expires, and then every second afterwards. So basically what I'm going to do with that timer and that method is place a random value in a private property and then expose that private property publicly. Let's go ahead and create the timer tick event. I just added the code to put in this timer event. And I'll explain that in just one second. And I see a question. By the way, you are welcome to do this any way that you desire. There are many, many different ways to complete timers and complete this project. I'm going to go ahead and, if you see here, I'm creating a random value. This is just normal code for multi-threading so that I can actually fire off the request and release control back to the method. And this is just creating a random value in between -100 and 101. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my two variables here. LIS, who is that? I'm not sure who that is. Paul? Anyways, again, you can do this any way you want. I don't care how you create timers. I'm just showing you one way to create them. If you have a way of getting them to work inside of UWP, that's fine as well. Generally, what happens with timers is they change. For example, a timer in Forms, a timer in Windows Presentation Framework, and a timer in UWP are all executed differently. So a lot of times when you're trying to search out timers in Google, you run into all these different variations of how to create a timer, and many of them won't work because they're for a specific type of development environment, even if they're all C#. Okay, so that's our device. The only thing we have left to do for our device is expose the private property data so that I can actually get that information out of our virtual device when I'm calling the get measurement device class later.
Quick question, Professor.
Yeah.
You've got random at the top there in your private variables. You don't have to prefix it with random, I take it, to keep it private.
I'm sorry?
The class variables, you've got timer, your data, and your R&D,
Right.
but you don't have private keyword in front of random. Is there a reason?
No. I just, you said private.
Okay. All right. The second question was, does it have to be static though for that to be persistent between things, or does it maintain it?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
This is going to be an object that we create later. Okay, let's go ahead and expose it. And that just makes it available externally to the class. So. And I'm going to stop there. And I wished I had like everybody put their hands up kind of thing that I knew that everybody's done and we can move forward. So if you can type in the chat box, if you need a few more minutes, otherwise I will go ahead and answer any questions and then move forward. You may need me to wait more.
I do got a question, Professor.
Shoot.
With that get measurement, are you passing that, was it by reference there?
No, that's actually just a shortcut way of exposing it as a property.
Ah, okay.
You can do it the old-fashioned way. I apologize for that. It's quicker to type.
Yeah, I just getting confused. I'm taking Advanced C++, and they usually use that for passing stuff by reference and stuff.
Or lambdas, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see who I've got still. Okay, just type in wait if you want to wait. Otherwise, I'm moving on to the next step. Okay, there you go. And by the way, it's always good after we finish one section to go ahead and compile it to make sure that it's not going to fail any syntactical errors. And then that way we can, if we do run into a problem, we can solve them now as opposed to having multiple failures later.
I do got another question, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
For our timer tick object, I noticed you went private async void timer tick. What's the async keyword doing here exactly?
That's actually multi-threading. It basically allows this method to fire but not require a completion before continuing. So by putting the async in there, it basically said, as it's running through this code, it will throw that method off into another thread and allow the program to continue operating. The reason this is important is if we were, actually this could be bad. If I was firing off this every millisecond, we would actually get bottlenecked. What would happen is the method would potentially, depending on what the method was doing, get caught up where it couldn't continue. It'd have to wait for the previous method and we get this long list of waiting to get the next data. By making it async, it's much faster. I don't care how much work is being done in the method. Go put it out to another thread and let it do it. Let it do its job, so that I can move on, and that way I can continue firing this timer over and over again.
Okay.
Quick question. I have not really researched the multi-threading in C# too deeply. Does it support like a semaphore type system for synchronization of threads?
Yeah, I don't even want to go into, that's a 3 or 4 class discussion.
Okay.
Threading is extremely complicated. As you know, if you've done any multi-threading, there's all kinds of issues associated with it, all kinds of things you have to do just in the right order, the right way, to make sure that you don't cause any data, failing acid tests, whatever. Yes, it does. It's an extremely advanced set of libraries.
I'm just curious, that's all.
Yeah. I think they cover timers, or I'm sorry, basic multi-threading in this book, if I remember correctly. I have it right in front of me. I'll check. Yeah, very, very primitive, but it does cover it. Starting on page 525.
Okay.
Okay, from our guest, are we ready to move forward, or do you still need more time?
I'm getting a couple of the red squiggly lines. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with them. I managed to fix one of them. I had a bracket in the wrong spot, but the core application that you can see with the await command still has a red squiggle under it, and I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, I'm new to Zoom, but I think you can share your screen if you wanted to share it, and maybe with the whole group. I'm not sure how it works. You want to try it, and I can see if I can control it?
Down at the base, if you put your mouse on the screen, the base would be a green button that says share screen.
Cannot start share screen while other participant is sharing.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue.
Okay, go ahead and try it.
And make sure you're using the proper directives.
Okay. You're probably missing a using statement at the very top.
Yep.
Yeah, you are. If you mouse over the core application where you see the squiggly line, and then show potential fixes, they're right there. Click that.
That one. All right. There we go. Thank you. What is that one?
And your random variable name is wrong. That's all. You did what I did. You named it random, all spelled out.
Yeah, you spelled out random, instead of R&D. Line 18.
Okay, go ahead and stop sharing and go back. I apologize. Give me a minute. I lost a couple of my screens in that process. Okay, anybody else? Yeah, if not, let me make sure I'm still recording. Let's go ahead and create a new class. And this one is going to be our measure link device class. Hope you guys don't hear me slurping. I'm eating a smoothie.
You're fine.
Okay. The get measurement or the measure length device class is what is actually collecting the data from our device. So what we're going to do is go ahead and create another timer, and this timer is actually going to pick up the data from the virtual device every, let's say, 15 seconds. Understanding that the virtual device will also have to be created or instantiated at this point so that we actually have access to its data and its virtual timer as well, or its timer, not its virtual timer. So the first thing I want to do is create an instance of our device. Really? Sorry. I also want to create another timer. And then again, this is the timer that is calling the get measurement property from the virtual device that we just created. By the way, I have a Corsair K95 keyboard, and I know it's obnoxiously loud, and I love the keyboard, but they have a known problem. The firmware goes bad in them, and they start sending random characters or not typing characters you type or double typing a character. And because of our lockdown situation, I haven't been able to go and get a new keyboard. So stick with me. I have to look to see what was mistyped.
Is your semicolon in the wrong spot?
That it is. That's one problem. Trying to figure out why I have two friends.
First milliseconds is missing an I. First total milliseconds on that line.
And E is one of the keys that I'm having problems with.
Missing an I also.
That I don't have a problem with. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. I can't do that. That's not allowed. It has to be inside the constructor. So let me create a constructor real quick. Really? Apologize for that. Put the timer inside the measure length device. And we'll go ahead and declare a timer outside here. Get a class level. Constant sucks sometimes. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to actually copy that in since I made so many mistakes typing that, and I'll put it in our chat window. The reason you have the squiggly here is I haven't yet created the method. So let's go ahead and create the method real quick. Welcome. We have a new participant. Okay, let's go ahead and create some information inside of our timer tick, which is basically going and grabbing values from the virtual device that I instantiated earlier up here. I have to declare that variable. I'll do that later, but I have to do it first. Sorry. Again, what we have is our get measurement device collecting data and storing it in the data property. We're calling the timer every 2 seconds after 1 second of instantiation. And we're just getting the data from our virtual device, which by the way is updating every second, but we're only collecting the data every 2 seconds and storing in the data property. So we basically have completed almost half of what we need to do for this entire project. We've created the virtual device and we created the get measurement device. The one thing that I did mention in the project, I don't remember if I made it a requirement or not, and that's the get history. So you actually have to collect the history of the events that you're firing. Now, that history could either be from the device itself every second and creating a history of data there, or you can actually use that history of the get measurement device data collection. I don't really care which way it works.
I had a quick question. If I remember correctly, I saw somewhere that the timer that's supposed to run for the measure length device is supposed to tick every 15 seconds. Was that a mistake on my part, or okay, there we go.
Problem solved.
There we go.
And by the way, I'm getting an error on timer tick because the method is stating that this is supposed to be a multi-threaded call. So I actually have to encapsulate it the same way I did earlier with the await code. I'm going to copy that over. This is literally a direct cut and paste from our virtual device. Well, not a direct cut and paste because By the way, welcome, Raymond. Sorry, we're actually on the second part of our project that we're working on right this second, but I am recording the whole thing, and hopefully that recording is picking up everything you're seeing on the screen, as well as our chat and audio.
Okay, yeah, no worries. I'm following along. Just had to just joined a little bit late, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Now, again, it's shocking how quickly we're moving through this project, but we are well over 50% of the way through, because all we have left now is to create the interfaces, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to leave that up to you guys, but it's very, very primitive use of interfaces. I'm just basically using them as contracts in this requirement. We do have to create a history. I will show you how to create a history real quick using a custom queue. And then we have to build our UI, which is pretty straightforward. I say we're probably about 55, 60% of the way through once you guys get this working. Girls and guys, everyone. Okay, before I move forward, can somebody type hold or wait if they want me to in the text? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and start the next stage.
Hey, Professor, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Quick question. And to be honest, I'll be honest with you, I still haven't read through chapter 21 yet, but for the measure length device method you're creating, the timer, is that a class, or is that a object within the .NET framework that we can use, a timer? So you know where you're creating a new instance of it, where you're saying measure length device method timer equals new timer? That's completely new to me, so I'm just wondering where you're getting that from. Or did you create a class for timer?
On page 525, they start discussing timers, but I'm using timers that I know.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can use whatever you're comfortable with, whatever's in the book, or whatever you find on Google. I'm just giving you one option.
Gotcha. Okay. And out of curiosity, what does a timer do?
In this case, if you look what the code I have highlighted, that's the timer. And what that's doing is calling this method every 15 seconds.
Okay.
That's all a timer's doing. So basically, it's creating a timer to repeat over and over and over again.
Okay. And basically, if it's recording every 15 seconds, what is it recording? Just what the user is inputting?
It's not recording anything. It's actually calling, in this particular case, this timer is calling that method, timer underscore play.
Okay.
And here's the method that it's calling down here.
Gotcha.
And by the way, nobody has given me a hard time yet about that timer underscore tick being lowercase t. That should be uppercase, but don't change it. I don't want to mess anything up at this point.
I also got a question.
Go ahead.
In my data collector that I'm working on, what I decided to do was have my timer essentially create an event and populate actually an array. And how I was going to go about displaying in my UI was I'm going to have another event that I'd fire from the timer's event, and that would instantiate a loop. And that loop was going to display to a text box. I know with this, it looks like, from what I understand, is you plan on doing something with the measure length device in order to essentially populate your text block with data. Is there any advantage to doing it this way as opposed to putting it in an array and just reading the array?
Well, yeah. What are you using the array for? The history?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have history listed here yet. I haven't done history yet. You could,
right.
Array is great for using it for history. I just haven't done that yet.
Okay, thank you.
In the document, I think I specifically stayed somewhere in the document, but I haven't read it in a little while. that the history should be collected at the virtual device level. But I don't care if it's collected at the measure link device level, or I don't care where it's collected, to be honest. It doesn't really matter to me. One of the reasons I added history to it is I had a student that worked for a hospital, and they had these medical devices that sent out data through Bluetooth every 5 seconds or whatever it was. And in the event that they were unable to communicate with the data collector, they would actually queue, well, actually, I guess even if they weren't connecting with the data collector, they had a timestamp. They were continuing to collect the data inside of the device so that it could update the Bluetooth device when it reconnected. So let's say that the device lost Bluetooth connectivity for 15 seconds. Once it reconnected, it would recollect that data that it had missed. And what he did is he asked if he could use this project in the hospital and actually build, instead of creating a virtual device, actually connect it to a real Bluetooth device. And I gave him that permission. And that's where I came up. I added the history at that point because he wanted to be able to collect that history. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have. With that said, you can do that history any way you want.
Okay.
Hey, Professor, one more quick question. I'm not sure if you guys already, well, you already went through this in the beginning, but when you were defining an interface for the eye measuring device interface, did you, when I was trying to create it, I just used the general object data type. I first used for all the different methods you were defining in the interface. Is that the best way to go about it, or did you just use, like, for example, for the metric value method, did you use like a decimal data type to define the method, and the same thing for like imperial value and start collecting? Or how did you define those?
I did not actually put any requirements in for the interfaces. I just wanted you to use them. Interfaces can be used for many different things. They can be used to store objects. They can be used as contracts to define objects. There's a lot of, one of the big advantages of interfaces is you can actually inherit multiple interfaces into a new class. So that's the reason they exist. But this is not going into great detail about the ins and outs of interfaces, and you can use them in any way you want. I actually just wanted them as a contract to basically make sure that any method that's using that interface has defined all the methods and properties required for, like, let's say, measure link device.
Gotcha. One more quick question. Just in general for like C# programming, I mean, doesn't it make kind of a lot of sense to just use object or var as when you're defining either a variable or even a method, just because it encompasses pretty much everything?
This is going to be, I'm sorry.
And I guess that's not very, like, memory efficient, but isn't that just like the most easiest way to just catch any future possible errors you might do whenever you're defining other classes or projects or solutions when you're using same different interfaces?
Let me answer your question. I would never, ever, ever recommend using var, but I'd probably be in the minority. Here's why I hate var. I like explicitly specifying the object that's going to be stored. Once you start using var, you have no idea what's being put into var, and therefore that can introduce all kinds of bugs and problems in your code in another way. Not to mention, it makes it extremely difficult for me reading code. Like, I like read code like it's a book. And when you start using var, that creates this ambiguity about what you're doing in code. Like, you don't know that you're returning a device. So, but that debate I will have and have had with many senior level programmers, but they will never convince me it's a good idea. And I see it happening more and more and more. To me, it's the lazy way.
Gotcha. Yeah, just from not efficiency, but just like in order to, catch yourself in future errors, because a lot of like, especially when you're building a project that's big, it's hard to remember a lot of the code you're writing, especially when you're writing hundreds of lines of code. So that's why I was thinking using var is easy, because then you can just.
Yeah, but if you use var, you're basically saying, I'm confused by that statement, because if you're using bar, you're saying, well, you don't know everything, so therefore you just use bar to collect everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
The problem
that's
is,
my
if you
point.
start trying to use that object later on, which you will, or properties from that object, they may or may not be there, and it may or may not be the project or the object that you expect it to be.
Can I say something here, Professor?
Yes, sir.
My 40 years of programming, strong typing, it's recommended, and it's great when you have an IDE like Visual Studio where it can tell you when you start, have the variable name there, it tells you exactly what it is, and therefore you should always use strong typing. And I'm on the same camp the professor is here. Strong typing alleviates so many other problems down the line with code, because I've had to work in code where there is not strong typing, like Lisp, and you say, okay, is that list a double list structure or is it a single list structure? And you get confused unless you have a very strong type language like C# can be. If you're using var, you're just doing away with the entire strong typing rigorousness that prevents other errors. I mean, Lord help you if you ever go over to Ada.
One of the funny things about that is, one of the reasons we hated VB is because it was not a strongly typed language out of the box, but it was an option you could turn on. And every programmer that was worth their salt would turn that option on to strongly typed VB. What's funny is C# was a strongly typed language, and then they introduced var, making it no longer strongly typed. So again, it's a debate, but it's a debate that can be had elsewhere. I don't really care if you use them or not.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that, so thank you.
Oh, we have new, sorry, Tina. I just saw you come in. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this real quick. I absolutely do not require that you understand exactly what I'm getting ready to do. I'm gonna provide the code for you. This is something I wrote for a lecture, in a different class, but we're gonna go ahead and use it in this class. So right click, add, and add a new item. Again, we wanna call this fixed queue. This is gonna be a generic. I'm gonna copy and paste the code to the text box. By the way, Paul, I apologize. I just saw that you said hold. I assumed that you got the time you needed.
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm hoping that showed up okay, and that it works if you cut and paste that directly into your fixed queue. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use the concurrent queue, enqueue, and dequeue to create a custom queue that limits how many objects will be stored. So one of the problems with history and queuing is it will indefinitely collect data. So if you left this running for like 3 or 4 days, the history would become gargantuan, and we just don't want to do that. So this is basically some simple code that I wrote to create a limit on how many values will go into the queue. And once it reaches that limit, it will start dumping the oldest. So it basically takes first in, first out strategy of getting rid of the data.
Professor, could you quickly scroll to the top of your screen and see all your using statements?
Absolutely.
Oh, collections concurrent. I got collections generic. Thank you.
I'm going to hold there for just 1 second and then move forward. Feel free to ask any questions. This does not use what we used, but it does use what you learned in C# 2 regarding generics.
Okay, I must be missing something. It's flagging the the T there in concurrent queue is something is wrong.
Basically, it's a queue that can store anything.
No, it's telling me it's got a red underline under the T.
Oh,
Um.
did you under here what I have highlighted?
Oh, I missed that. I missed that. My bad. That fixed it. I missed the T on the end there.
Gotcha.
So quick question. I get what the general purpose of the queue collection class or list is. Used for first in, first out, or no, first in, last out, if I remember correctly. But can you just kind of like walk through that code real fast you created for that class? What are you hoping to do?
I'll show you later.
Class? Okay. All right.
This is going to be our history.
Basically, it lets you set up a history of a specific limit, and this particular class manages that limit for you, so you don't discard stuff that's larger than the limit.
The reason I said to wait, because the great thing about coding is debug works wonders. You just
Gotcha. Okay.
put a breakpoint on here and just sit there and watch as it adds values and then drops the first in, first out. So did I say first in, last out? I thought I said first in, first out.
No, you said first in, first out.
Okay. But anyways, so you'll sit there and watch the queue, and it will just start dumping the 11th item in the queue once it gets to that point. Okay. Can I move forward? Just type hold if you want me to wait a second. Otherwise, I'm going to move forward. Okay. Can I help you, Chris, or everything good?
I think I'm just missing a couple using statements real quick.
Okay, there should only be one.
Yep, I fixed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else need me to hold, or are you good? Okay. Let's go ahead and go back to measure link device. By the way, we're coming up on our 1 hour meeting limit. It's not, hopefully it lets me continue. If it shuts me off, I will go back and create a new meeting real quick and send an email out and let you guys get back in. But hopefully it doesn't cut me off. Okay, now what we're going to do here, let me go back to measure link device, and we're going to go ahead and add the queue here to create our history. So at the very top, null here. And then here, we'll go ahead and instantiate the queue inside of our constructor. Again, this is a generic, so we want to tell it what we're going to store. And then we're going to set the limit. Maybe. And why not? Oh, duh, sorry. So again, so far I've added 3 lines. I declared the storage location up here for my device. And then I went ahead and instantiated and set a property inside the constructor. And then down here, inside of my timer, I'm actually going to start collecting my history. And just to let you know, I'm expecting this to take, depending on the questions and other things, probably another 45 minutes to an hour so to finish this up. Just in case you guys have something else you need to go to.
Well, I got two screens. I can put work on one and you guys on the other.
Okay. Great. That's it for the device. That's it for the MeasureLink device. That includes our virtual timer firing off. It includes MeasureLink device grabbing the data from the virtual timer, and it includes a queue. So we have a history of 10 elements that we can actually post into the UI when this is all said and done. Any questions?
Yeah. Why are you using a queue collection list? What do you want it to be first in, first out? What's
I'm
the
sorry?
logic behind it? Why are you using the my queue or a fixed queue collection list?
So I can actually store a limited number of elements.
Okay, but I get that. But what do you want it to be first in, first out? I suppose.
So I can limit how many elements I store, so that it always stores the most recent 10, 5, 20, 100 elements, whatever it is. I only want it to keep the most recent elements.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, you're asking that question for a reason, so I may not be answering it to give you the correct answer you're looking for. If you can give me some context as to why you're asking.
No, I get it, because like if I'm following the logic right, you're doing a fixed queue because you want to collect the most how do you say, what's the word, like chronological collection. So
The most recent data.
most recent data, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Without, I don't want to collect it forever. I just want to collect it for a limited time.
Okay, so 10. So you want to collect it. You want to collect 10 different records at 15 seconds each. Is that correct?
That is what is happening in this case. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. By the way, there's, again, this isn't the only way, and it's definitely not the only way that will give you a perfect grade on the assignment. It's just one way. Okay, next, let's go ahead and we're going to create what they call a view model. This is actually a little more advanced. It's actually not discussed, I don't believe, on page 642 or 643, whatever that page is that discusses data binding. But view models are a way of actually creating or isolating your data and then allowing us to bind that to the UI. You're going to have to just trust me that this is a pretty standard way of doing data binding. And here's what's crazy. You won't find it, if you do a Google search, people do data binding completely wrong. The only place that I've seen that it's done correctly is on Microsoft Documents webpage. And if you've ever looked at documents on MSDN, it doesn't just do it simply. They make it like stupidly complex. We're going to try to make this as simple as possible, but still do it properly. So let's right click, and we're going to add another class. And this is going to be what they call a view model. And it'll kind of become clear what's happening after I glue this to the UI. So don't panic too much just yet on the code you're about to see. Just copy it blindly, and then we'll explain it as it gets connected to the UI. Let's see, what do we want to, oops, I'm sorry, hang on. By the way, this is not the only way to do it. This is just the right way to do it. And you could do it another way. And if you've already completed your project or you've got the data updating the way you want it to, this is not a requirement. This is just a bonus since you're online with me today. I also probably wouldn't name it this if I was actually creating an application. For demonstration purposes, we're just going to call the view data main display data so we know what it's used for. I mean, quite a bit to type here, so some of the stuff I'm actually going to copy to the window. Some of it I'm actually going to type out because I'm going to use other code from another project I have to copy some of the basically schema code that I need to create a view model. Oops, hang on. What did I do? I create two private properties. And these are going to be the properties that we're actually going to bind to the UI. So we'll actually create two text boxes on the UI, and we'll bind these two properties to that UI in just a few minutes. We're going to create a private property. I'm sorry, expose the private property history. This is the easy one. Pretty standard affair. Okay, now, one of the things that I love about Microsoft, well, I'm not going to ask this question because I won't be able to know who's actually responding anyways, but in other languages, C++ and Java, you actually have to create calls out or handlers for events, right? So you have to create these lambdas to actually allow a click event on a button, or unless you use Windows Builder or something like that. But I don't know in Java if they actually teach Windows Builder. Probably not. That would be a guess of mine. Anybody take Java?
Yes.
Did they do Windows Builder?
Yes. Yeah, a little bit. They covered a little bit of it.
Oh, did they? Okay. They didn't used to. I was fighting for that for a long time, but I'm Java certified, but I don't teach the Java classes. That's actually handled by other professors. But anyways, with that said, it kind of hurts us a little bit in Visual Studio because we've gotten accustomed to just dragging and dropping, especially in C#1 with Windows Forms and how unbelievably simple it is and fun and quick. But one of the things we have to do here is actually build these properties or events, basically, to allow us to react to a change in the class. I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, you're talking about the XAML?
No. That's actually that's the UI portion. So basically, what I'm going to show you here is I actually have these in as a snippet of code that I can actually just drag into my project.
Hey, Professor, just an FYI, on line 18, you forgot the semicolon for the set.
Oh, yeah,
in
thank
your
you.
property. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so again, I just have this set up as a snippet that I can actually just drag into my projects whenever I'm working with any type of view model. So go ahead and do the same, just copy that into this project. And what this does is creates methods, creates an event, as well as a method to fire when that event occurs inside our view model class. once you get that in there, you can just create your measurement, exposure and measurement properties, and actually link them to a change event. So in the event that anything changes within this property, this public property, it fires off a method. This allows us to actually bind to the data, and every time there's a change to this view model, the data bind will actually update the UI. So let's go ahead and type this code out real quick. Again, this is just our measurement property. We want to do a set, and this is where we have a little bit more code. The get doesn't matter because we don't care about the get. It doesn't have any effect on any type of change. I just looked, by the way, the book covers data binding, but it only covers it in 2 pages. It does not cover it at all. It's effectively worthless in the book. Okay, I want everybody's attention here, so I'm going to wait until I confirm everybody's at this point where we can actually write the final set for our public property measurement. So if you need me to wait here, just type hold real quick. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and just type it out. We only want to do this if, see, my E doesn't work half the time, sorry. If a value is returned with some value, okay, so when this changes, we're actually calling these 2 methods. One before the change and one after the change. That will then call off these methods, which will fire off our event handler, which will then update our UI. Again, this is just cut and paste code to create my, my handlers for this view model. And that's all there is to the view model. And all I'm doing with this view model is I have one that's actually storing history, which is just a normal public property. And then I have another measurement property that I'm actually wanting to bind to the UI and have it update every single time this property changes. That's why I have to have the events firing. Because once I actually use these binding methods, it checks to see if there's an event. And in the event there's an event, it updates the UI.
So, out of curiosity, I mean, data binding, then put it in layman's terms, what does it do? Is it just pretty much just like linking a data set to like, let's say like a entity with, data? Like, for example, just establishing like a connection string or something like that? Or I'm
It's
just
a
a
good
little bit
question.
confused.
That's a good question. And we're not quite there yet, but I can show you what it is. So if we look at our main page, right, here's our main page. We haven't created it yet. You will in a minute. We're going to get to this in a second, but I'm just going to show you in advance. I have a text box here. I have a multi-line text box here. And if you look, I have a standard binding for my history text box.
It's not showing.
I'm so sorry. Hang on. Yeah, I don't have it yet. I can't. Can you give me just a minute and I can show it to you?
Sure.
Okay. By the way, who asked that question?
That was me, Raymond.
Okay, that's a great question, and we are going to get to that, and we'll come back and see how it applies to the view model at that point in time.
Okay.
Okay.
No worries. Appreciate it.
Matter of fact, we're here. I mean, we're at that stage, so we can actually start building that code. I just wanted to make sure everyone was ready to move on from our view model. Can anybody that needs me to hold, just put hold. Otherwise, I'll give you 30 seconds. We'll go ahead and move on to the final steps. Okay, let's go ahead and go to our main page, sorry. And we're going to create those three things I mentioned earlier. We're going to create a button and two text boxes. Go ahead and open it up where you can actually see the XAML on the bottom. And I'm gonna use the XAML more than I'm gonna use the UI. Let me click on this one. And see, this is the one that I want to store the instantaneous data. And this is the one I want to store the history data. So I'm gonna go down here in this text box and give it a name. And tell it to wrap the text. And then, oops. Really? That's a valid property. Oh, never mind.
Hey, you're wrapping it twice.
Sorry, it was already set to wrapping, so I didn't need to change that. I can just extend the sides of it up here. And then scroll over to click on this text box, the one that's going to store history, the one you've labeled as measure history. And scroll over where it says text.
I seem to be missing my toolbox. I can't actually find the thing to put a button or text box on my.
Okay, if you click up here and view, and let's see where it's at. Hang on, I gotta find it. It should be there by default, but
2/3 of the way down.
did you see it?
Yeah, toolbox. Control WX.
Oh, there you go. You have to be on the main page view in order to see it.
I found it. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so go ahead and go back into text. What we're going to do is we're going to actually bind our view model data. And by the way, IntelliSense works here, but I think you have to instantiate the display data view model first. So we're kind of doing this backwards, but that's fine. For your other text box, look for your text. We want to type in, this one's a little more advanced in terms of a binding. This is the one I want to update automatically. And it's making me nervous because I forgot to put my thingies in there. Again, the reason it's giving me that squiggly is because I haven't yet declared that view model inside our main display. Backend code, we'll do that in just 1 second. Okay, so to go back to the question that was asked, I think William asked the question earlier about the view model and the property events, the change and changing events. This is the standard XAML way in C# to actually bind to a view model. This is binding to the property history, the public property of the view model, and this is binding to the measurement property of the view model. This one I actually have a little more code because I'm actually asking it to do a little more work. I actually wanted it to bind to the events as well. So in the event that there's ever a change to measurement, the property in the view model, I wanted to update the UI. It's also possible that you could actually do the get and the set. I did not do the set inside of the view model. That's why I have this set to one way. You could also do two ways. So in the event that a user changes the value inside of the UI, it would update the view model's data as well. And you could actually react to that update and go and fire off an update to a database or whatever. Okay, I'm gonna move forward unless somebody types hold. I'll give you 30 seconds. No problem.
Chris said hold.
What's the name on that first text box, Professor?
I'm sorry?
The first text box with the name.
Oh, actually, you know what? Thank you for saying that. They didn't give it a name.
Oh.
Thank you for saying that. By the way, the first text box, I'm going to actually go ahead and give that a name real quick. I apologize. Thank you, Paul, for pointing that out. We'll call it measure. Button I don't really care about. I'm not going to do much with button anyways. So again, basically two things in each property: set the name and set the data binding for the text property.
And getting the squiggly line there is normal because we haven't bound it yet.
Well, we haven't created the view model inside of the main data code behind page yet.
Gotcha.
But matter of fact, I should have probably done that first so that the IntelliSense would have worked inside the XAML UI. So as we typed it, it would have shown me the property. If I typed display data.measurement, I would have seen the property that it found from the view model.
IntelliSense is wonderful. You young kids don't know how easy you got it.
I know when I first learned C++, I was using Borland with Watcom-C.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, Borland and then Watcom-C. But with Borland, I was actually my very first application. I built a Windows app. Forget which it was. It had a built-in framework. I can't remember the name of the framework. But it took me 71 lines of code to just build a window, and like 280 lines of code to bounce a ball inside the window. Because you had to build everything and sit there, loop through. There was just had this one huge loop that would just keep track of what everything was doing. Actually, the multiple loops. It was a nightmare. It is so much easier nowadays.
And then also you get the stuff like that really popular image that floats around the internet of one of the female programmers on the Apollo mission standing next to the code she wrote for the rocket by hand, and it's a book as tall as she is.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Impressive.
Well,
Yep.
by the way, I'm 51 years old, and in middle school I had a fan of mine. His name was Graham Devine. He actually wrote pole position for I think for the Coleco or for the Atari. He actually works for Magic Leap here locally nowadays. But anyways, he also wrote Seventh Guest. Long story short, he also worked for not Doom, Quake.
Id Software.
Well, you're correct. Quake Arena, I think, is the one he worked on. But anyways, when id Software came out with Doom, I actually fell in love with that whole programming, right, mentality of building 3D models. But in 1984, I was in the 8th grade, and I actually have a book. I have a magazine sitting right next to me. I can probably put my camera on. It's called Creative Computing that I bought in February of 1984. And it actually has basic code with matrices on how to create a 3D model. And this is back in the day when IBM PCs were still like stupid slow and Apple IIes were popular. I'm actually going back through that today and rewriting that code over again, reminiscing of my childhood, and building 3D model libraries to create my own like little Unity, just so I can learn how to do it again. It's pretty cool.
Well, about that same time frame, Professor, we wrote a very primitive version of Battlezone for the Apple II using Matrox 3D library for it.
Well, this was actually wouldn't use any 3D libraries. This is, you would actually create the library. That's what's crazy about this. Matter of fact, I teach Unity, and I'm actually got a class coming up here at the college. And I'm actually thinking about, in the lab, having everybody come in and actually writing their own 3D library. Not as a requirement for the class, because the math requirement is a problem sometimes because it requires Cal 3. But it's pretty cool. Okay, Chris, are we good?
Yeah, I'm good to move on. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Did you get what you needed done?
Yeah, I think I just had I was missing a capital letter somewhere and it was giving me squiggles.
Okay, and I can copy and paste this code if you need it.
I think I got it.
Okay. With that said, let's go to the code behind and finish up our code, and then we're done. By the way, I probably shouldn't have talked about that whole 3D thing. I forgot I'm recording this for the class.
Edit time.
Yeah, everybody ignore that.
Edit and post.
No, it's no big deal. I actually liked it. It's a little bit of background info. I'm completely new to programming, so I don't know half the stuff you guys are talking about. But that sounds really cool.
Hang on, I'm gonna put this up real quick. Hang on, let me see if I can do it real quick without messing up too bad, and then I'll move forward. But you see that?
Oh my Lord.
I bought that in February of 1984 as a 7th or 8th grader. I can't remember now. I'm actually bringing that into class if anybody's interested in the fall or spring, and we'll create a 3D library. We'll try it.
We may have to just opt into your Unity course in the fall.
They actually canceled it because of the COVID, the
COVID.
CoV-2, SARS-CoV-2 or whatever it is. They reschedule it for the spring.
Oh man.
Okay, so again, let's finish this up. Main page. And what we're going to do here is a couple different things. We have to create an instance of our measure link device. We have to create another timer, potentially. We have to create, let's see, we have to access some resources. So this is a little advanced. Again, this is not covered in the book. This is not the only way to accomplish the goal, but I think it's the right way. So let's go ahead and go into main page. I'm going to go ahead and create a timer. I don't know if I'm going to use it yet, but I'm going to create it anyway. We're going to create a heap for our measure length device that we're going to create in the constructor. We're going to create a instance of our view model. Now, because I need to access the UI, I'm going to call in a couple different types, and I'm going to pull them in so I can actually access the UI via code. I'm tempted, by the way, I don't know who asked about bar. I'm tempted to use bar here as an example, but I can't. There's limitations on it. So. These two items here that I'm creating are going to give me access to the UI from the backend code and all objects on the UI. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finalize my timer here. Go ahead and create an instance of our measure link device. Okay, here I'm actually going to actually bind our data to our UI, our view model to our UI. Sorry, I forgot to create my no, I didn't. I got it. Measurement device. Oh, give me 1 second. I have something wrong here. It's not seeing my properties of my main measuring device. Public measurement device.
You may want to rebuild the solution. That sometimes helps me.
No, I don't have my, I didn't set my public properties. I apologize.
Okay.
I'm going to let you guys go ahead and finish typing what I have here, and then we have to go back and fix the measuring device because I didn't finish it. I didn't expose the public property. Okay, so for right this second, we're gonna have to hold off on this one. You could get what you have here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and hold at this point. Ask if anybody needs me to wait. Go ahead and tell me to hold for a minute. Once we're done with this code, we'll move over to the measuring device again. No problem? By the way, we're just minutes away from being done. So. Chris, how you doing?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get caught up. I haven't really typed much of this out yet.
Okay. Do you want me to give you a shortcut by just copy and pasting?
Sure.
Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy everything inside the class.
That works.
Paste it directly into your class. Might have a bird.
Yeah, that's mine. Sorry.
That's okay. He heard me.
That's why I've been keeping muted. Yeah, he likes me.
It's easier than having 4 dogs that want to bark at every little thing that moves.
Yeah, we've got dogs too.
We lost our dog, and my wife has yet to give me permission to get a new one. But hopefully soon.
Let her know there's a dog out there that needs your love.
You know what's funny is we've been looking for a shelter dog, and they're all pit or pit mixes. And now that the coronavirus, or again, SARS-CoV-2 came out, all the dogs have been adopted. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against pits. We want a smaller, cute, cuddly dog.
Mine are not in that category.
We had a Scottish Terrier. It was absolutely the closest thing to a family member we've ever had. So, besides our kids, I should point that out. We have kids. Did you get it, Chris?
Almost done.
Okay. By the way, what's funny about this magazine that I have, the Creative Computing magazine, in it is by the way, I used PageMaker, all this PageMaker as a desktop publisher back when I was young, and it included a version of this. But anyways, this magazine was written in February of 1984, and it has Windows 1.0 in it. There's absolutely no mention and no sign of Mac or the Mac OS. It was all Apple IIe at the time, which I think is crazy considering the story about how Microsoft stole Windows from the Mac.
Who stole it from Palo Alto?
Xerox, exactly.
Oh,
They
are you
stole
serious?
Palo Alto Research.
Is
Yeah,
it like an
Palo
open
Alto
secret?
Research invented Smalltalk, and the Smalltalk OS was a GUI-driven, mouse-driven interface.
Very familiar with
Oh,
it.
so wait, Microsoft wasn't the first one to come out with that, with the GUI
Nope.
based
No, Xerox.
Xerox Palo Alto was.
Xerox, really?
Yeah.
Yep. And then when Microsoft and Apple started getting in lawsuit flying back and forth, along with Digital Research, trying to do their gem operating system, Xerox stepped in and said, "All right, you guys, kids, settle down. It's ours. If we wanted you to sue each other, we would have, it's
Actually,
ours.
Xerox,
Stop."
Xerox did not stop them. Xerox had no interest in pursuing it at all.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
All right, I'm ready to move on. I was getting caught up. I was trying to figure out why that little red squiggle after line 42 is there, but I see it here too. So I'm assuming that's something we're gonna fix.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our measure length device. And this is, again, my bad. I apologize. If you notice, I created our properties. At least I think I did. Hang on. I have measure length device as our constructor. I don't have any properties at all. Sorry. Okay, let's go ahead and add those real quick. Let's go below. Man, I missed a couple things. I apologize. After our constructor, hopefully I have everything else. Oops. And I got something wrong. Public int measurement, get, oh, sorry. I have to create our external measurement property, our public exposed property, and also our history property. Man, why? Okay, for the histories, I'm actually going to go through and iterate through the collection and basically create a string. So I'm going to go and create a new method here. And I'll copy and paste this into the window so you guys don't have to type it if you don't want. I thought I created that already, but whatever. Perfect use of var. How about that? What do you think?
var. Oh, for the for each statement.
Yeah. That's a safe one to use.
I guess it doesn't really matter in there because that var data type is just going to be stuck in that little.
It's local
data
to the
block.
loop,
Yeah,
so
it's
therefore
local.
it's not going to be. It's not something like 4 modules later. You're like, what the hell was I doing with this?
Yeah, the scope for it is pretty limited just for that
Yeah.
statement. So.
By the way, here's where it's actually valuable because I'm using generics. I actually don't know what's going to be returned in this for loop. I have no clue. Therefore, using var in this case is actually the right way to handle it.
Okay, yeah, because it could be, could be decimal, could be Boolean value. I got
Be
you.
anything, yeah. Why did it keep putting zeros in there? Okay. Let me copy that over for you so you don't have to type it if you don't want. There's the method for creating the values from the queue. I'm gonna hold there for a minute, and then we're going to go back to our main page. Again, I apologize for jumping over here. And by the way, what I'm showing you here is not what I would expect anyone to come up with. What's great about programming is there are so many ways to accomplish the same goal. I actually teach, one of the things I love about my C#1 class is when I like the Morse code project that we do in like week 6. I can't remember what week it was, but
That was fun.
yeah, there is absolutely no one that comes even close to what anyone else does. Matter of fact, I actually get a check. What happens is when you guys do projects in those classes, they actually get sent to, I forget what the name of the company was, to check to see if there's any plagiarism. And it actually checks you against every other university, as well as every time I've ever taught this class or any of my other adjuncts have taught this class. And it gives me a percentage of how close you are to that other code. And I know when a student comes back with 80%, they've copied it from the internet, but not blatantly cheated. But most of the people that actually do try to write it for themselves show up around 10 to 15%. I've never legitimately hit without somebody actually copying something from the internet, where there's even anything remotely alike in that specific assignment. It's crazy. I've had it done in as little as 4 lines of code and as many as like 500. I mean, I had a student that created a case statement for each and every letter. It worked. lot of work on his part, her part, whatever. But
When I
Yeah.
was in high school, I took a Visual Basic class and we made the basic Connect 4 game. And the silly little part of my brain was like, hey, it was a tic-tac-toe game. I was like, oh, I'm going to make a Connect 4 game. And I went and brute forced my way through every win possibility. And like 2 days later, I was like, why did I do this? I hate myself so much right now.
it worked.
I got it done. It
Yep.
wasn't pretty, but I got it done.
Exactly. Okay.
Sometimes brute force is the approach.
You're right. I've brute forced many times. So real
Well,
quick.
look what IBM did with their chess playing. They built hardware.
Yep.
True. Real quick, anybody need to hold or can we move on?
I'm good.
I'm
Got
good.
some errors here.
Who's that?
That's Paul. I've got some errors. I'm trying to find out where they're at here.
You should have 3 errors up to this point.
No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at his.
Okay, let's go ahead and go back to main page, code behind. Okay, let's go ahead and finish up our display data now that we have measurement, our exposed properties. There it is. History. What's interesting? Hang on, what am I? Oh, no.
Didn't we put a toString on the measurement on it? Do you need that there?
I don't know what it's returning. I just did that out of habit. No, it's returning an int, so I need toString.
Okay.
Just to be safe. I don't think I don't know if it cast it from an int to string. It should, but I'm just going to force it to a string. In fact, I'll check. Why not? Yeah, now you have to force it to a string. Again, multiple ways to do that. Just one way. Okay, what do we got here? Oh, sorry. Okay, so that's our binding to our measure length device to the UI. Next, I want to go ahead and create a event for the button. So to simplify this, I'm just going to go back to main page, double click the button real quick. So it creates our code behind for our click event. And I'm going to use this as kind of what's going to instantiate the whole thing. And by the way, if you're using Windows Forms, Windows Presentation Framework, or UWP, they all have their methods of actually accessing the UI on the backend code. Even ASP.NET has a mechanism for doing it. This is just how we actually go and find the controls that are on the UI and be able to interact with them. Almost done. All we have to do now is create our timer to update our data. I'll copy this from my snippet. Yep, hang on. I forgot to create my event, sorry. Ah. I'm going to actually copy this timer tick so you can copy it, paste it if you want. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to, if you're having problems, there's main page. Here's our event for the button click. And here's the timer tick event. Oops. Okay, so I just copied, I know it's all mumbled together, but all three of my methods are now there in the chat window. And I'm glad I did that because I accidentally deleted.
I think I'm missing a using statement for core application.
Yeah, let me clean these up real quick. There's all your using statements.
I got it. It was UI. It was the UI application and the core and the one for the core dispatcher.
Gotcha. Okay, I haven't tested it yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and run it once real quick. I'm a little bit nervous because this is really, really frustrating sometimes.
I'm having the bind is still showing display data is not bound.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me see what I get. And then I'll have to troubleshoot it if it's not working. Yeah, we are not getting any data, so I'll have to troubleshoot. Let me let everybody get to this point, and then I will troubleshoot together. So. Okay, real quick, do I need to hold on this page or can we move on? Just go ahead and type out in the chat if you need me to hold for a minute.
I need to hold on for a second. I'm trying to figure out. My program is telling me that private modifier is not available for like the button click and the timer tick for some reason.
Did you actually double click on the main page UI to create the button click event?
I did not. That would probably be
Go ahead and delete that and then go to your main page and double click on the button. By the way, it's giving me an opportunity to look through this code, and I don't see any issues currently with the code that's being displayed here. So my problem might be somewhere else. I might have to do a little bit of debugging to find out exactly where everything's firing off and making sure everybody's doing their job. Get it? Hey, Chris, was that you that were?
Yeah, I'm still. Hang on. Is that?
Okay.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
outside of main page. That's why it's not working. Okay, that's why.
I've got a
I
problem
had
with
my
the
code in the wrong
button
spot.
click event. It's
Okay, my stuff's all fixed.
Excellent. Did I hear somebody else say they were having an issue?
yeah, I'm having a problem with the button click event. What's that character after routed events? I can't see it. Routed event args
It's an
on the
E,
button click. It's an E.
lowercase, yes.
That should already, that code should have already been placed for you when you double click on the main page.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think was the problem.
Okay.
Let me copy, cut that out, and redo the button click. There we go.
Okay, so what we're having right now is we're actually getting what I believe to be a binding. So I think we're good on the binding, but for some reason, our measurement device here, which is where we created here, is returning a 0. So I think our problem is further back. But what I'm gonna do is just to verify that, I'm gonna put a breakpoint right here. And actually, no, not right there. I want to do it on the button click event. Here. Okay, and I'm just going to run it. You guys don't have to do this. You can just watch what I'm doing, and we'll troubleshoot it together with my computer. Okay, so I'm going to step down one real quick and look to see what our measurement text is, which is 0, and our measurement is 0. So my measurement device appears to be where the problem is. So I'm going to go to the measurement device, which I'm going to go ahead and remove that. You can see this is the declaration. Measure length device is here. So now here's our measure length device. And let's see if it's collecting the data that it's supposed to. So on my timer right here, I'm going to put a breakpoint here. And this is just to verify that I'm getting data from my virtual device. And currently data is being collected from the virtual device and it is going into the queue. So I'm going to step one down. I'm going to go to my watch window and go to end queue. Actually, what did I call it? I forget what I called it. My queue, sorry. Okay, so currently my queue has one value currently right there. So that's perfect. Let's go ahead and step down. By the way, one of the problems we have debugging is when you're multi-threaded, this is happening. It's hard to debug because things are happening outside of your debug. Okay, so we're getting that data. Okay, so all this is being updated. So we have to go back to somewhere here in the measure length device when we get the print values history. Let's go back to main data, main page. And let's fire off right there. Now, what I'm doing right here is I'm actually grabbing the virtual device's history, which we can see is collecting data. So I got to figure out why that isn't providing that data to me. So let's go ahead and run again. Okay, and let's check our history. Okay, so the public properties are not returning the data that's actually embedded within that measurement device. Because if I go here, I'm still running, right? And I fire a breakpoint right here, which I have. Go ahead and run it. And the breakpoint occurs. And you can actually see my queue has data in it. Oh, no, it doesn't. Yeah, okay. So my queue has data in it, but it's not returning that data here. Oh, wait a minute. Forgive me. I apologize. I think it's actually working. The history isn't, but I think everything else is working. So give me 1 second. Okay. Because I did nothing different. But let's give it 15 seconds and see if 22 gets changed. Yeah, okay, so it is working. I apologize, it is working. Go ahead and run it. See if yours is working. For some reason, I didn't make any changes to my code, but I thought it wasn't working earlier.
We didn't wait.
Is yours working?
Now, I've got a problem with something that says bindings. Main page does not contain definition for bindings. Is no accessible extension method.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll go back.
Yeah.
Hang on. Somebody just sent me something. Is that a screen capture? Christian? I apologize, Christian. I'm not clicking on anything until confirmation.
Yeah, it looks like my program. I have to hit the button every time to update the box on the right.
Yeah,
history.
mine's fine. If I hit the button, it prints everything to the box. I took a picture on my phone and just
Well,
sent that into the chat.
yeah, the history is not bound. So the view model is only displaying the instance data, not the history data. So this history will not be updating every 15 seconds. Only this is being bound. By the
Yeah.
way, if you're interested, you can actually add that history as a bound control as well. I just did not do that. Basically, this is exactly how it should operate. When you click that, you should get your history data, and this should be updating every 15 seconds. Hang on, I'm just making sure that it updates again. Yeah, okay, so it is still updating. By the way, I had this set to 2 seconds originally. I probably need to go back and set it back to 2 seconds so that we can actually see this data. And I'm gonna do that change here. I know the instructions say every 15 seconds. And again, my button is to start the whole thing firing. Oh, that's buggy as all get out. Isn't that crazy? Oh, there it goes. I just impatient. Hang on.
Yeah, another one that was 15 seconds somewhere.
What did I change on? I did it on main. Oh, you know what? You're right. I think I have it on my.
Yeah, we got multiple
device.
timers.
Yeah, it was on measuring device as well. I should probably stagger those because there's a possibility that it'll pick up the same value twice, but hit the button. Yeah, now it's firing up a lot more often. There you go. And by the way, we'll get everybody working, and then after all is said and done, if you want to actually watch the NQ and DQ firing off, we'll actually go in and debug that, or you can do that on your own. It doesn't matter to me, just so you can understand how that custom queue is working. Okay, what page do you want me to go to? Just so you guys can troubleshoot your problems, just type it out in the text, in the chat.
Yeah, mine's working just fine now.
Oh, excellent. Congratulations. That's basically the entire project, by the way, minus the interfaces.
My program's giving me an issue. It says at the bottom that a main page does not contain a definition for measure text changed and does not contain a definition for measure history _ text changed. I've got 2 of them. I don't know if I think I may have accidentally clicked the, and instead of just clicking the button, I think I clicked on some other stuff and might have built some other connections that I don't know how to undo.
Well, it won't matter. If you want to do me a favor and go ahead, if you want to share your screen, I'll try and take a look at it. Do you want to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
See, it's got like the These two, I'm not sure what's wrong with these. It says the file is in the main page.
Okay. Can I get control somehow of your desktop? Let me see.
I'd rather not.
Oh, okay. No, I understand that. Let's see. Do me a favor and go to your main display data. Okay, go ahead and scroll down. Hang on there for a second. That looks good. Go to main page XAML. Hang on, go down to your controls. Right there, yeah, hang on, right there. Don't see a problem there. Go to your main page, code bind. Scroll up. Do me a favor, double click on the error message down below. Oh, okay. I know what happened. Somehow you actually got the code to automatically fit or set a text change event, but you probably then deleted that code.
Okay.
So in your code behind page, it's expecting a measure underscore text change and a measure history underscore text change, but you deleted them.
Okay.
And there's actually, hang on, in UWP, let me find it real quick. Usually if you double click, can you double click those errors for me real quick?
I mean, I just did, it didn't.
Yeah. Do me a favor, scroll to the right of that text box of your XAML. Actually, right there. No, up a little bit. Right there. Scroll to the right of all that. Keep going. Right there. Delete those two text changed properties.
Keep the slash in though, right?
Yes, correct. There you go. Now go ahead and try to build it again.
There we go.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and if you can stop sharing and let me.
Yep.
Back up. Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I thought I had a problem, but I commented out the line it was doing in the code behind that main page.g.cs page, and it was trying to find an object called bindings. I must have accidentally clicked on something,
Okay.
and it generated. So I commented the line out, and that made it work. I just going back through and doing what you did and reduce the timing down to like 2 seconds so I can see things update better.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mine, I don't know if mine is updating every second, but like when I click button, it updates, but I don't know if my actual number is updating properly.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen or do you want to try to troubleshoot it with just verbally?
Hang on. Hang on. I think it just changed, but I wasn't paying attention. Give me a few more seconds.
If you change the measure link device and
it changed automatically. We're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Excellent.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have a question that on a instruction to do a requirement, you say on number 4, it's a you gotta have a integer array and get raw data, you should have an array too. Like so my question is like, where should I put an array? Like right or
I did one better. I created a queue instead of an array.
yeah.
But it's just a array.
So do we need to do an array, or can we use that queue?
Well, queue is an array. It's a customized array.
Okay. Okay. So okay. Gotcha.
If you look at the architecture behind any of those types of collections, I think they all inherit from the base array type, if I remember correctly, and then they just provide mechanisms for inserting records out of order, or doing all kinds of different.
Yeah, their collections are just a fancy versions of arrays that you're allowed to do more with them.
Correct.
Arrays, lists, queues,
Everything.
catalogs, it's all the same.
And like I said, if I remember correctly, all of those different collections actually do inherit from array. If I remember, I vaguely remember going through this.
Yeah, you're correct.
Quick question, Professor. The to bind that history so it comes out every time and gets updated every time a clock tick elapses, 2 seconds or 15 seconds, whatever. Would you use the xbind and display data dot history?
Yes.
And then mode one way.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
There might be more to it than that. I haven't gone back and architected it, but
Only give it a shot.
That's a great test for you guys to see if you can put it all together. And again, like I said, the only thing that's really missing, there's actually, I said there was only interfaces. I believe I have also missed the mechanism where you have to actually choose between metric and SAE and converting and having an enum and interfaces. But that's all simple stuff relative to what we just did. So
Just don't know where to slide it in.
well, that was 2.5 hours. That was a little longer than I thought it would be.
Well, it's not updating the queue list, the history list with that xbind.
Well, the base code is all there to get it to work.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can look at it and put it all together. So that'd be your challenge for getting the perfect grade. How about that? Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I believe like this is pretty quick because last time I worked on this assignment with with 2 others on Discord, and it took like around from 12 a.m. until 8 p.m. I believe so.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
well, I don't
with
know
someone on Discord in this class too. The Discord is created by someone in this class, and it take like, oh gosh.
Well, my hope is in an 8-week class that students spend 25 to 35 hours a week on the material. I know most don't, but my hope is that they do.
Unfortunately, I have to work 40 hours a week.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I teach the ASP.NET course.
Yeah, I'm in it.
Yeah, I spend probably, and this is not an exaggeration, that one class consumes about 40 to 45 hours of my time for the first 6 weeks.
It's only because Microsoft keeps changing things before they don't notify you.
Well, I have to, you're right, I have to rewrite everything. Every semester I have to rewrite the course. It's terrible, but there's no book, so I had no option. However, I also at the same time go in and just kind of reevaluate my knowledge level and maybe extend it a little bit more each semester with the Energy Framework and all that stuff. So I'm learning as I'm teaching as well.
Yeah, my problem with time management is I've got an attention disorder, so I'll be working on my project and then answer a text message and look up and realize I've been on Facebook for half an hour. It's like, oh, no. And then I realize I have to go to work.
Chris, real quick, just to let you know, most of the people that I've met, my best and greatest developers, by the way, I'm a CIO. I moved into education as kind of a final phase of my life career. But my best programmers were ADD and ADHD programmers. And I'm
Because
not
they can
objective.
focus.
Yes, exactly. I have severe ADD. And my son, my youngest son, is diagnosed severe as well. And he's one of the greatest programmers I've ever met.
Oh, neat.
By the way, you may have met my son if you had maybe last year at courses here.
I've been doing mostly online courses.
Oh.
So,
He worked at the college last year. So.
oh, neat.
Hey, Professor,
Yes, sir.
just a random programming question I've been trying to get behind. What's the main use for null values? Like, I get they don't mean zero, or they don't, you kind of use them to specify if a variable or like something or a method that something returns is, isn't, it hasn't returned anything, but I guess why do you really use it?
Well, null has two important values. Number one, it allows you to create a heap of memory without actually putting anything in it. So you're basically pre-allocating a location in memory for something in the future, and actually holding that space available. Number two, null allows you to create an instance of something like an integer that doesn't yet have a value and therefore doesn't consume any space. So I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly like you're wanting, but there's a difference between creating a object from a class and creating a null location in memory from a class.
No. I do understand it for the most part, the way you explained it. Like, a nullable value is like, an easily castable data type, I guess is what you're trying to say. But it also kind of references that, if you have a variable or a method that returns a null value, it specifies that specifies a method that you need to fill it in with some other type of datum. That's kind of how I'm understanding it.
Yeah, well, again, I'm not exactly sure of your question, but I will tell you that there are certain types that don't accept nulls. So like an integer by default is non-nullable. You can't set an integer. You have to set it to 0. There is a mechanism to force an integer to accept nulls, but the problem by allowing an integer to accept nulls, integers are commonly used in math. And as soon as you try to do any math against an integer that's a null, you're going to get a syntax error, or sorry, a runtime error. So therefore, your program's going to crash when an end user is using it. So we don't want certain types to be nullified, even though it's possible to bypass those fixes. And that's an example of strict types as well. By forcing us to only use one type and casting to all our various compatible types, we're stopping an end user from getting an error somewhere down the road, possibly. Does that kind of answer your question or no?
Yeah. I have to think about it a little bit more, but I think that kind of makes sense.
Wait till you get the sequel.
There are so many reasons for like nilotic functions and values. It's really hard for me to express those here together with you because I don't know exactly what's in your head in terms of what you're looking for. I mean, like Paul just mentioned, I mean, SQL uses nullification to allow you to actually have data without actually having a value in a column. And depending on your configuration, that could actually save space on the database.
Yeah, I guess that just brings up to mind another question. What's the difference between a null value and a nan? Is it the same thing?
No. Nan is just not a number. It's basically not able to do the math. There's no number result in your math, so that's innate.
Gotcha. Okay, and the last question I have is because I'm just trying to understand the concept of multi-threading. Is basically multi-threading is you just tell the program to focus on certain actions more so than others during
I'll give you an example of multi-threading. Let's say that you had one job to do, and that is move a rock from point A, or let's say 10 rocks from point A to point B. And that distance is about 100 feet, right?
Okay.
If you and you alone had to move those rocks from point A to point B, it would take you 10 minutes, 1 minute for each rock. Multi-threaded allows you to be basically in control of 10 people. So you tell person 1, grab a rock and move it. Then you go to person 2, grab the rock and move it. Go to person 3, grab the rock and move it. And you just keep going down the line. And you don't care if they do their job correctly or not. You just assume that they're going to. There's a way you can get around that. But that's basically what we're doing here in this course, is I'm basically having you go down and tell those 10 people one after the other to go do their job, and you don't care if they finish it or not. Then at the end, you hope to look back and you hope to see those 10 rocks at the other location.
Okay, no, I get that. That was a really good example. That's basically just kind of like how, like explaining how you do work in a system. Basically, like the amount of joules it takes for you to do something. As long as you do it, it doesn't really matter how you do it.
Correct.
If you like zigzag from A to B, or if you just go in a straight line. Gotcha. Okay.
Well,
Well, that's a very good example. So thank you.
any other questions? No? By the way, just as to continue that example, where if it took 1 minute to move each rock, you could effectively move all 10 rocks in just over a minute by doing it that way, by multi-threading.
Gotcha.
And if somebody tripped, let's say that the first person tripped, and you're like waiting for them to finish, they tripped and they sprained their ankle and they're on the ground crying, I can't now go move the other 9 rocks because that guy sprained his ankle. If you use the multi-threading example, the other 9 rocks would get moved still, even if the first one didn't.
Okay. So would that mean it takes more memory? Because then the system would have to kind of like. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Takes more memory, takes more processor time. In fact, throughput is actually, the performance is actually reduced. Scalability is improved. So basically, as an example of that, if you had 5,000 people coming to your website every second, and you didn't have multi-threading, what would happen is those people would start getting backed up, but the people in the front of the line would get their responses very, very quickly. If you did multi-threading, all 5,000 could be handled at exactly the same time, but everybody would be slower.
You guys aren't used to the old days of DOS where you only run one program at a time.
No, that's another good point. The very fact that you can run more than one application on Windows at the same time is because of multi-threading.
Windows is a multi-program operating system. It can run more than one program at the same time. It just switches very, very fast between them.
Back with Windows 3, when Windows 3 first came out, and I'm not talking about Windows NT, but Windows 3. What happened is if right now I have you on a chat window, we're talking and communicating, and I have video, whatever, and I have Visual Studio open and running, I could not have done that because I couldn't have Visual Studio open and running and talk to you at the same time. It wasn't possible.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, I appreciate all the info, Professor. And
Hey,
it'll definitely take a lot of time to go through this video, but I think I should be able to get through it.
well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the meeting and try to get, hopefully this video is going to pan out because I want to share it with the class, maybe even for future classes. But you guys have been great. I've really enjoyed my time. I hope you guys are staying safe. And I will see you next time.
All right, everyone have a good night.
Likewise. Take it easy, guys.
Take it easy.
Take it easy. Thanks, Professor. Quick question for you before you take off, Professor. You said they scheduled it for spring for the Unity course?
Yes, sir. 2000.
Is that applicable toward the AS or as an elective or what?
It's actually, and I'm going to have to pass on that statement or the answer to that question because right now it was scheduled as an upper division course. But
Okay,
now, well, it's been pushed to spring, so I may be able to push it down to a lower division course.
I'm just curious because I'm going to be taking Java script this summer and C++ in the fall.
Okay.
Trying to do 2 8-week back-to-backs for one and 2 to finish it off. Have
Gotcha.
the AS wrapped up by December.
Okay.
Um,
And I
that's
can't,
the plan.
and I can't answer the question just yet, but I'll have more information probably in a couple weeks.
Okay, well, just curious because if it was available online, I mean, I've dabbled in Unity and played around with it, and even wrote a routine to simulate gravity for a spacecraft landing on the deck of a Battlestar. So,
Very cool. It's a lot of fun. It's a ton
oh
of
yeah,
So.
and just trying to understand Unity was the hard part. The C# part was easy.
Yeah, exactly. I tend to move away from the UI and just code everything. So.
Well, yeah, as I said, I've modded Battlefield 2. I never touched the editor. I did everything through code, through the Python and through the Python objects. So
All right.
it
Well,
was
very cool.
yeah. All right, let you go.
Yeah.